Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Living Ageless and Bold. How many of you wake up regularly at 3 a.m.? For those of you listening, I'm raising my hand. If that's you too, today's guest is about to change your nights and your days. Morgan Adams is a holistic sleep coach who helps midlife women finally get consistent restorative rest without relying on pills or quick fixes. After spending nearly a decade dependent on prescription sleep medication and battling insomnia herself, she now teaches science-backed tools that actually work. I can't wait to hear all about this. Morgan is a two-time breast cancer thriver, a women's health advocate, and a trusted expert featured in Forbes, MindBodyGreen, Yahoo, and more. Her approach is all about helping women understand why they're waking up and how to take back control of your sleep. Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you, Christina. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Oh my gosh. When your information came in, I was like, how quickly can I get her on? Because my girlfriends, my mom's been in the hospital. She just got home, and my sister and I have literally been exhausted like every day at the hospital. And we both looked at each other and we were like, well, we don't sleep anyway. So it's not like this is causing anything different from the regular. So before we get into how you're going to help all my amazing followers, let's talk a little bit about you and how you got into this.
Yeah, well, I had insomnia myself starting in my mid-30s. I had sort of a relationship challenge, and that kicked off what we call sleep onset insomnia. Essentially, I just could not fall asleep. I would lie there 1 to 2 hours most nights, tossing and turning. And after a few months of that, I went to my doctor and said, I need some help. And I was given a prescription for Ambien. At the time, I was actually a pharmaceutical sales rep. So when I was given the opportunity to take a medication, I literally thought nothing of it, like no big deal. So I took the Ambien, and it worked as promised as far as like helping me fall asleep more quickly. Although I would sort of debate that. We could get into that a little bit later, but I found myself reliant on them for many years. And I stayed with the pills despite the consequences the next day, which were for me fogginess, trouble concentrating. I remember at this point, I was in another profession. I was in PR at a health department and had to produce content really quickly, write things really quickly. And I remember several occasions, my boss standing over my shoulder, just sort of tapping her fingers because I was so slow because the medication was still in my body in the morning. So I really hadn't fully cleared it till probably close to noon. So it was like being hungover.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Which in your 20s is how you went to work, but not later in life.
Yeah.
Is Ambien an addictive drug?
Does
your body get used to it?
Yeah.
Kind of like Afrin. They say don't take Afrin regularly because to clear your nose or your nose won't clear itself.
Yeah, your body can become dependent on those chemicals. Your brain is looking for those chemicals. But I think even more than that is the psychological dependency, is feeling like it's a huge crutch, like you need it. You know, you just feel like I've got to take this. So, I'm not totally against sleeping pills. I think there's a time and a place. And that time and place is really when there's a crisis situation, and whoever's prescribing it to you should give you some kind of plan, some kind of exit ramp to get off of. But unfortunately, in my situation, I'm seeing clients who've been on a sleeping pill, 10, 20 years because their physician didn't really have any plan. They just kept getting refill after refill. So that's, that in this day and age, that is sort of frowned upon. I don't think that's happening a lot as far as like new prescriptions, but there are people out there like my clients who have just been kind of strung along with the system. So it can be, yeah.
I have another question. Do you get the restorative sleep on the Ambiens or the sleeping pills, or does it just knock you out?
Great question.
Yeah.
The answer is no. What the pills do is they sedate you. They don't actually put you into the deep sleep that you would normally get if you were just left without any kind of medication. It changes the sleep architecture. So you're not getting the proper stages, flowing after one another.
Right.
And quite often people will, quote, sleep, but they don't really feel refreshed in the morning, but they were unconscious.
Back to your hangover feeling, like how you,
exactly.
You're just groggy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're on the Ambien for years and years and years and
Let
years.
Me
and then,
story.
Sorry. I digress.
I got off track. And, so about 8 years into taking the Ambien, I met my current husband. And he said to me in a very loving way, when you take those pills, you kind of act like a zombie, and it's a little bit freaking me out here. And I thought, gosh, he's right. These pills are not serving me. So I made the decision to stop taking the pills. Now, I did not do this in the correct way. So for those listening, do not just yank yourself off any kind of pill, especially if it's a psychiatric pill. But I did it. I didn't know any better. But just because I had a lot of grit and determination, I was able to successfully get myself off of the pills. And I slept pretty decently, I would say, for several years. And then there was a plot twist. And that plot twist was something we collectively experienced together in 2020. Right in the beginning of the pandemic, I started to have trouble sleeping again because of all the anxiety with the unknowns and are we going to be in our houses forever? And so my sleep started to decline. I got very concerned because I didn't want to actually have full-blown insomnia again. So I started doing the research on sleep, learning a lot. And I would start organically posting on Facebook some of the things that I was learning and applying to myself. And what I found was that a lot of women in my circle were struggling with sleep as well. And so, just sort of a backtracking to the whole breast cancer diagnosis in 2018, that was a pivotal time for me as far as, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? What's sort of my game plan, my mission? At that point, I knew I wanted to do something to help women with their health, but I just wasn't sure what that would look like. So then in 2020, 21, with this new discovery of sleep and the realization that a lot of other women were struggling with it, I thought, my goodness, there's a need out there for somebody to help women sleep better. And that's where the whole genesis of me being a sleep coach happened. So, you can't just hang up your shingle and be like, hi, I'm a sleep coach.
I was going to ask you, did you just decide, I'm just going to be a sleep coach? Like, did you go through training, certification? What is there for that?
It's funny because I actually did just decide. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And when I told my husband, he's like, holy crap. Yeah. He's like, this is what you need to do. This is your calling. But of course, you can't just hang the shingle. So what I did was I got certified as a health coach, and then I took several sleep coaching certifications and essentially spent like a year educating myself, and then decided, okay, there's a point at which you have to kind of not stop educating yourself, but you have to put a final time to like actually help people.
I'm ready
to actually help people. So I started helping people and, charging a little bit of money for it. And then it just kind of took off. So I've been at this for coming up on 5 years now. Okay. So it's been a real joy, a real privilege to be able to meet women in a situation where they're really struggling and help them find their way out of such a feeling of being distraught all the time with having poor sleep.
Well, and when you said, something that everyone went through, I thought you were going to say menopause. Because COVID.
Well, for me, not quite then. I was a little bit late to the party on that one, but
I was too.
You're right.
I got a call from my doctor. I think I was 55, 53. And your doctor never calls you. And she's like, Christina, you are as fertile as a 21-year-old. She goes, I don't know what happened. You've got some eggs that didn't come out, because I thought I had cancer. Like I had basically period symptoms again. Long story short, she's like, you better be careful because you're going to be, I think I was 56. She goes, you're going to be a pregnant 56-year-old. You're going to break all the world records.
Oh
I was
my
like,
goodness.
wow. So I was late to the party too. But I
Yeah.
wonder how much of perimenopause and menopause impacts our sleep, and specifically the hot flashes, the heat, because it's, I've woken up wringing out my shirt.
Yeah. Well, the latest statistics are showing that about half of women in perimenopause and menopause are struggling with sleep. And the hot flashes and night sweats are paramount symptom of that. And it's really because of the decline in estrogen. Now, there are a few reasons why women in midlife struggle with sleep. We just touched on the first one, hormones. That's kind of an obvious one. But there are a couple other that I'll just kind of do broad brushstrokes about. Second one is anxiety and depression. Rates tend to go up more when we're in midlife, and those leave us more prone to sleep issues.
And do you know why? Because I find myself more anxious now.
Yeah.
Like I used to be such a free spirit. Almost a fault. Like I worry about everything and everyone. And
there are many reasons for that, but one of the main ones is that declining progesterone. So that progesterone is there to help us with GABA production. So that neurotransmitter that helps us to kind of chill out, our nature's chill pill. So when we don't have as much progesterone, sometimes the anxiety ticks up.
Interesting.
But then the other reason that a lot of women are struggling with sleep in midlife is really, I would say, more like sociocultural reasons. So picture this, like a 45-year-old woman. She's got kids she's still raising. She's got parents she's in charge of helping with their care. And on top of all that, she may be at the top of her career game. Maybe she's a manager, or maybe she's running her own business. And so with all of those competing demands, that creates this sort of situation that's very stressful and anxiety provoking. So that impedes her sleep even more. You've heard of the term, the sandwich generation. That's really what I'm getting at.
I just posted something on Twitter about that. It's real. It is real. Yeah.
So many worries come out of it because you're not just responsible for yourself. Many times you're responsible for a generation behind you and above you.
My daughter's 25, stranded at the airport in a small town in Florida. She had to drive 7 hours to get to another airport to go to Atlanta to be stranded for 5 more hours. Like, this is days and days while my mother's in the hospital. So I'm trying to help her make sure she's safe in all these cities by herself. She's a grown woman, but you still worry. Yeah. And then, that's what I did. I'm like, it's real. It's real.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a storm of hormones and responsibilities and mental health things happening all at once that just really kind of kick the sleep issues into full gear for many people in midlife.
Well, one of the things that I found so interesting, and we'll send everyone to your website in a little bit, but you have a free download that I read, and my husband is on a lot of, they're all natural, but a lot of medications that cause him to go to the bathroom a lot. And he's like, I got up 5 times to pee last night and blah, blah, blah. And what was really interesting in what you said is people say that, I woke up because I had to go to the bathroom. But in fact, your body is waking you up and then you realize that you need to use the restroom. It's not the other way around. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because so many people will say to me, oh gosh, I woke up last night because I had to pee. But when you really dig down, there's often another reason for that. And there are many reasons why. It could be maybe you were hot and you woke up and then you were lying there and you were like, I should probably pee. Sometimes it becomes like a learned habit. Like you're up, being up means I pee. So you just continue this behavioral loop. A common reason why a lot of people will wake up is because they have a sleep breathing issue. And there's some kind of, I forget the name of the chemical, but there's some kind of chemical that's tied in with your kidneys when you have trouble breathing. So you're basically being woken up because you're having trouble breathing. And then with that kidney thing, the kidney chemical, which I can't remember the name of, that causes an increase in desire to urinate. So you do kind of have to urinate. in a way
That's
when you're having sleep breathing
fascinating
issues.
that you said that, because, and my listeners know this, my husband had kidney cancer this year and had a kidney
Mm,
removed with the
mm.
tumor.
Oh,
So this is something I'm going to ask the doctor next week,
yeah.
is I wonder if he is releasing whatever that chemical is, but I will
Yeah.
Google it and find out. That's fascinating. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But there are a lot of reasons why people wake up in the middle, and that the guide you mentioned has all of those reasons, but really the top few that I see in my practice are sleep breathing issues, being hot, overheated, not necessarily a hot flash, or night sweats, but just, overly heated. And then the third main reason that I'm seeing is blood sugar issues. So at night, sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning, we will have potentially a blood sugar dip. And that dip creates this cortisol spike, which wakes us up. And so one of the remedies for that is, and now this is a Band-Aid remedy. I don't recommend doing this forever and not addressing the root cause, but sometimes if you have like a small snack, like an hour before bed, like maybe some Greek yogurt with some almonds, something very small.
This is not milk and cookies before bed.
No. That's not what you want. Then you'll really disrupt your sleep that way. But something, maybe even a few bites of your leftover dinner, that would suffice too. That can stave off that blood sugar dip, and that wake up as a consequence.
I just did a lifestyle segment, and one of the things I showed, it was like gifts for the woman who has everything. And it's a sheet company called Breescape. And the sheets are fabulous, and they're cool to the touch. But when I was doing my research, they said that your body temperature should go down to 93 degrees when you sleep. That helps you get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that before, but that's interesting. And I know that bamboo sheets are very popular, bamboo pajamas, because they pull the heat out of you.
Yeah. Bamboo pajamas and sheets are my jam.
Yeah.
I love them. They're so comfortable and soft and cooling. But yeah, you're right. Your body temperature does have to drop a couple of degrees to initiate sleep, to really kind of help the melatonin production along. And staying cool as you sleep. Some of the latest tech that I'm loving, it's not accessible to everyone because it's a little pricey, but it's the cooling mattress pads. That takes things to a whole new level. I mean, I've got one, 8 Sleep. I've had it for over 2 years. It's like the best sleep tech I've ever invested in, because it really does. It can prevent you from overheating. It can warm you up in the morning to wake you up. It's lovely. But again, it is more of an investment option, for your sleep. So,
but you're investing in your health.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I have a lot of friends who have it, and they swear by it. Like it literally adjusts your body temperature, right? And then it does, I guess it warms you up in the morning to wake you up more naturally. And
I always joke, the only downside is when you go out of town and you don't have it and you sleep like complete crap because your body's used to it. And so pretty much anywhere I sleep when I'm out of town, I'm like, this bed's a furnace,
Yeah. There's no fan. There's no, okay. How many hours of sleep do we really need? Do we need 8 hours? And do we need more as we get older?
We do not need 8 hours. That is what I call the myth of 8 hours. So the National Sleep Foundation recommends between 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So I think where people get the 8 is because 8 is right in between 7 and 9, right? So there are some people who need less, some people who need more. If you read the fine print in the National Sleep Foundation recommendations, it can say anywhere from 6 to 10 hours can be appropriate for some people. But what I really encourage people to do is kind of explore and figure out their own sleep need in terms of amount. But the conversation is changing a lot as far as taking a step back from looking so much at the quantity, and it's focusing more on a couple things: quality, but even more importantly, over the past couple of years, is consistency and regularity. There was a huge study in 2023, thousands and thousands of people, And they found that regularity within like a 30-minute window of bedtime and wake time, it cut death risk by 49% and cardiometabolic risk by 57%. So you're getting a huge health benefit by simply having some consistency to your sleep schedule. And
so no sleeping on the weekends.
And that's a little bit of a murkier issue, because sometimes if you have been sleep deprived over the week, that extra hour could be a little bit protective for you if you have a cardiovascular issue. So they did a study recently. They found that there's some cardiovascular protective effects on sleeping in a little bit, but it doesn't really help your circadian rhythm too much to have those like kind of wonky, inconsistent schedules. So if you're going to sleep in, I would say no more than an hour, because you don't want to throw your circadian rhythm off. So yeah, the whole 8 hours is kind of a myth. And I think that as we move forward in public health with sleep messaging, we're going to see more and more information about the consistency piece because of that huge research study from a couple of years ago.
All right, let's talk about napping, because I love a 10-minute nap kind of every day. I used to do it when my daughter was in high school. She would get home at like 3:00 and I would just lay on the couch at 2:45, knowing that she'd come through the door at 3, and but I'd be out for 10 minutes. And I have read that, if you do nap, let's say you took an hour nap, that gets to count towards your evening sleep, but it doesn't make sense to me because of the sleep cycles. So I'm curious what you think about napping.
Yeah, I think napping can be a great restorative practice for the daytime. It's just, you want to time it accordingly and keep the amount of time you're sleeping to kind of a minimum. So the ideal napping schedule would look something like no more than a 20-minute nap, and cutting that nap off around 3:00. The reason why we don't want to nap. Yeah. The reason why, it matches you well. The reason why we don't want to nap too later in the day is because it will cut back on our sleep drive for that night. So it's kind of like, imagine if you're snacking before dinner, you're not going to be as hungry for your main meal of the dinner. It's the same concept. So napping is sort of like snacking on sleep. So you don't want to lower your appetite for your main sleep. And then the length of sleep, well, have you ever had a situation, you may not have, but a lot of people I'm sure have, they've napped for like maybe 45 minutes and they wake up and they're just like groggy as all get out, because they basically woke up from their deep sleep.
They went too far.
Yeah, they took it a little bit too far. So you want to time your nap so that you're not like waking up in your deep sleep. So you could maybe potentially do a longer nap that's like maybe an hour and a half if you really, really need to like catch up on some sleep, or you're preparing for an event maybe later on in the day or that night or something like that. But generally a 20-minute nap is probably at least the sweet spot.
Perfect.
A+,
exactly
Christina.
What I needed to hear. Thank you. I was always a good student. No, I wasn't. Okay. Another thing that I read in your literature, and my husband does this and it makes me crazy because it wakes me up, is the cell phone. Like he can't sleep at 3 a.m. and he gets on TikTok or Instagram and starts scrolling. And of course the light then wakes me up. That's a big no-no, right?
Huge no-no.
Yeah.
That's a big no-no. And here's why. So there's a couple things at play here. One you mentioned is the bright blue light. That is really just going to be too stimulating. It could decrease your melatonin secretion. You just don't want to mess with the blue light while you're in bed, supposed to be asleep. The second thing is the scrolling, the TikTok and all that stuff. That is cognitively activating. That's stimulating your brain, giving you the dopamine hit and, basically cutting into your sleep time. So I am definitely not a fan of having the phone next to you while you're sleeping, because the temptation to grab it if you wake up is just so high. And when we wake up in the middle of the night, we don't have a ton of willpower. right? So my recommendation is really for people to take their phone out of the bedroom, maybe put it in the next room.
What?
I know that's shocking to so many people, but it's better just to have it away. Now, if you're in a situation with, older parents who may need you, you could have it by your bed or maybe across the room so that you're not it's not an arm's length. And then have it programmed so that you can only receive notifications for that particular person so that you're not just woken up by any random, ding or ping.
Oh, I have to tell you this. And I don't know what it stems from. But so I've traveled, like when I used to travel more for work, and you'd share a room with somebody, and these people who have the dinging on all night, ding, ding, like everything that comes on. And then I traveled with my sister and she has the dinging on. And then we were in the hospital this week with our mom, and we're both working while she was sleeping. And every email that came in, every text message that came in was like, bing, ding, bing, ding. I'm like, how do you do that? Like I can't, and sleeping at night, and they keep it on all night long. They can't possibly be getting good sleep, or do they just get used to it?
No, I really don't think you get used to it. I think what's happening in a lot of these cases is you're having a micro wake up, because those dings have to be waking you up at some level. Maybe you're not consciously awake, but just sort of a micro arousal. Yeah, it's definitely it would be interesting to see someone's sleep data having slept in, an environment with a lot of pings and stuff. You really want to just, as much as you can, ensure that your sleeping environment is interruption free, or not interruption free, noise free. You want to basically prevent any interruptions with sound or, sudden things happening. We want to just keep your bedroom a sanctuary, really.
Yeah. And I do what you say. I turn the ringer off, but I have my kids and my mom, family members, if they call in the middle of the night. But here's a little trick, kind of what you said. So I plug my phone in, and the cord is just long enough to reach the edge of my nightstand. But in order for me to get my phone, I have to, use two hands. I have to unplug it and then get it.
Right.
So I wouldn't do it in the middle of the night. That's a lot of work in the middle of the night to look at my phone. So it's just out of reach, but just close enough if it's an emergency and I need to grab it.
Well, that's good. You've created enough friction for it to be not such a temptation.
Right. Okay. And I know I'm going to regret asking you this, but I think I know the answer, but I love my wine at night. That's my go-to, my wind down after a busy day. How bad is that affecting my sleep?
Well, it's not great for it, but it really depends on how much you're having and when you're having it. So if you're having, this is what I would recommend to most people if they wanted to enjoy wine at night, is have it for the happy hour time, 5 o'clock. And then
I'm a late night girl. I don't. 8 o'clock. I want to cook dinner, do everything. And then I just want to sit in front of the TV for an hour and just have a big glass of wine.
Yeah. So what time do you usually go to bed?
Right after that.
Okay. Yeah. The timing is not ideal. Well, you asked, but the timing is not ideal. We ideally want to leave a 3-hour window in between our last drink and going to bed. That's why I was suggesting 5. Because most people would be going to bed at maybe 9 or 10 or maybe later. Then the longer the period of time in between, the more your body has time to process it. Because what happens with alcohol is, so you're drinking it before bed, and it's doing its job of sedating you. But after the alcohol starts to get processed in your body, it actually has an activating effect, and that can create some of those wake ups. So,
got it.
Yeah. So
I know.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. This old dog,
she's not learning a new trick. But for all you younger gals listening, I want you to know you should stop a little earlier. Okay. So before we wrap up, could you give a couple tips for women like me? What are some easy things we can all start with tonight so that we can get a better night's sleep?
Yeah. A couple things that come to mind are having some kind of reliable wind down routine that you can go to pretty much every night.
I thought you were going to say wine. Did she say wine? No, I'm sorry. Wind down routine. Okay.
A wind down routine that does not include wine. Okay. Ideally.
Darn it.
I know. But something that is something you can do, maybe a half hour to an hour before bed, where you're essentially kind of shutting things down. You're turning off your work computer. You are doing something that's not cognitively stimulating. So even if you're like talking to your spouse, you don't want to be talking about the bills or, family conflict. Right. You really want to prevent any novelty in that hour before bed. You want to make it just really
what'd you have for lunch today?
Yeah. Like very kind of bland conversation.
Yeah.
So, and the possibilities are endless for having the routine. You could do stretching, you could do meditation, you could do journaling. I mean, there's so many things. I personally watch TV, but I'm very careful about the content I watch, and I watch it with all the lights off in the room. And I'm pretty far away from the TV, so it's not blasting me with light. But that's my preference, and it works great for me. I'm falling asleep quickly and staying asleep most nights. And so there's no problem in that regard. So number one, the regular wind down routine that can be predictable. Second thing would be get morning light as soon as possible after waking up. There's a lot to say about this, but the sort of the bare bones of it are that when you see the light around sunrise, you are essentially sort of strengthening your circadian rhythm, and it's telling your body and brain the day has begun. And then all of those processes are starting to happen. It gives you a great energy boost. You just don't want to wear your sunglasses while you're doing this, right? Because the sunglasses will shield your retina, and your retina needs to see that light for it to trigger into your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is your circadian pacemaker. It gets very sciencey.
Okay. It's fascinating.
It's very, very in depth, but that's sort of like the Reader's Digest version of it. So maybe spending, 10 minutes, just maybe walking around your neighborhood, or if you don't want to walk, sitting on your porch, but just getting that exposure every morning. It works so well. And people are like, really? And there's so many studies backing this up. But I think the reason, Christina, why people sometimes scratch their head at this is because it's so very basic. And people are like, well, why haven't I heard of this? But if you think about it, like, who's going to fund the PR campaign for this? Like, nobody can make money off the natural light. So of course people aren't going to really talk about it that much, but it works. So that's
we walk every morning. My husband and I get up every single morning. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can everybody find information, download the free download that I talked about? Cause that was really great. It had great information in it.
Good. Well, you can find me on my website, morganadamswellness.com. You can download that guide there. You can schedule a free consultation if you feel like you need some deeper help with your sleep, or if you have insomnia. I'm on social media, on LinkedIn and Instagram. My LinkedIn, I'm not sure what my LinkedIn handle is, but if you type my name, you'll find me. And then on Instagram, I'm morganadams.wellness. So drop in my DMs and say hello. I love connecting with people who have questions about their sleep.
Awesome. And we'll have everything in the show notes. So ladies, listen, we all know people who aren't sleeping at 3 a.m. I have this conversation every day with my girlfriends. Please share this episode, share Morgan with them, send them to her website, because it really is some great stuff. And we should all be sleeping a really good 7 to 9 hours every night. So Morgan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.